So next up we have Warren Black, who is an engineer, risk specialist and complex systems theorist for Complexes. And he's going to talk to us about what happens when your chosen risk management practices are inadequate for a complex, disruptive, modern world.
Morning, everybody. Thank you for having me here today, and welcome to the Strategic Risk Forum. I love sessions like this because it gives us a chance to collaborate and talk about where risk is going. So to give you a bit of background to me, I'm actually a project engineer by trade. I work in infrastructure environments, project environments, asset environments. So most of the work that I do is in sort of the risk engineering type world. But about 4 years ago, I got involved in a PhD by research where we're trying to understand how complexity influences risk. And on the back of that, I write a lot of thought papers, which have been published by this institution. I'll also give a lot of presentations in industry, and so here we are today. So I have a particular interest in the fact that the world is getting more and more complex, and what does that actually mean for risk management? Now, one of the journals that I have followed over the years is the World Economic Forum report. We heard about that a little bit earlier. It comes out every year around about the end of January, early February, and what it basically does is it outlines what the big macro threats and opportunities are in the world that we as risk professionals need to start paying attention to. Now, for the last 3 or 4 years, they've had a consistent theme that the world is getting more and more complex, and risk management as a formal management discipline is actually being left behind. We need to start investing in new thinking, new infrastructure to keep up with the world that is getting significantly more complex and disruptive every single year. Now, they've had this underlying tone in every report for the last 3 or 4 years, but this year they took a quite noticeably harsh turn. And they were actually a little bit hypercritical about how we're managing risk around the world. And they introduced this concept of we are sleepwalking into crisis. And basically what they said is that the global institutions, and admittedly they're talking at macro level, the global institutions, politicians, type organizations, all the people who should be collaborating on the world's major threats have kind of lost sight of the ball, all right? They've gone in their different directions. We're very fragmented. We're all focusing on things like Trump politics. We're focusing on Brexit and other individual isolated type scenarios, and not on the global macro risk. So this ability to actually collaborate and address risks as a global community seems to have gone out the window. And because of this, they say we're not investing in the infrastructure necessary to deal with global macro threats. And because of this, the world is potentially sleepwalking into crisis. And I thought that's a phenomenal thing, sleepwalking into crisis. But then I also thought, you know, it's probably not just at macro level, it's also happening at organizational level. The companies that we work for, our clients, our organization, are probably in the same boat, and maybe they're just not aware of it. So I started exploring this a bit in my research, and this presentation is on the back of a paper that I actually delivered, and I want to talk about it a little bit to you. So why is it that the World Economic Forum thinks that the world is sleepwalking into crisis? Well, I think the first thing that we need to do is understand the current state of our working world. And we touched on this a little bit earlier, and it's actually part of the theme of today. In the last 250 years, our working world has experienced 4 major industrial revolutions. These are revolutions where our working world changes so dramatically and so catastrophically that our working methods become completely unrecognizable to the previous generation. So the first industrial revolution was the steam revolution at the end of the 1800s. And basically we saw the birth of steam machinery, steam trains, steam plants, steamships. And for the first time we actually had the basis of which global industry could actually work, because suddenly we could, you know, deal with much greater volumes of production, transport to the other side of the world within weeks. And before you knew it, the whole working world started revolutionizing and moving towards steam power. Then around about 1910, 1920, electricity became commercially available. It had been around for a while, but all of a sudden it was affordable and anybody could have it. And once again, the world was disrupted on a generational scale. Can you imagine a working world without electricity versus a working world with electricity? That is how radical the disruption was. And for the better part of a disruption, better part of a generation at least, disruption was everything. As we went into a working world that had electricity, lights, electrical motors, refrigeration, air conditioning, now all of a sudden plants could work 24/7 and production took off. And once again, the working world was catastrophically disrupted. New methods came about which people could not possibly have imagined. Then around about 1980 or so, the computer generation came along, and once again, the world was radically disrupted. All of a sudden, we had a computer in every home and every office. We now even have a computer in every pocket. Can you imagine a world before computers versus after computers? So now we saw the birth of personalized technology, software, the internet, the intranet, Windows 95, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Word, and all the packages, PowerPoint slides. All of a sudden, the working world was radically transformed once again. Could you do your job that you have today without a computer? That is how disruptive the world is, right? It created jobs that didn't even exist. Then around about 2016, the world started changing again, and we acknowledged that we were entering the fourth industrial revolution, the technology revolution. All of a sudden, cyber systems, artificial intelligence, robotics, technological disruption are all going to make our working world change yet again. So things like artificial intelligence, virtual reality, big data, predictive analytics, all of these are going to disrupt our working world once more. In 10 to 20 years, there will be jobs that exist that we've never even thought of. Our jobs will be completely different to what we see them today. Once again, the world is changing. So this is the thing that is at play at the moment. Rapid momentous change. And is the world keeping up? Is risk management keeping up? That's what the World Economic Forum asks. Now, what we need to understand is that in this fourth industrial revolution, there are two characteristics that are specifically unique, which we as risk managers and just general practitioners of the working world need to understand and work with better. The first one is the concept of absolute global connectivity. Every single person in this room is connected to every single other person in the room, or in any other room for that matter, in the whole world, through trade, travel, tourism, and technology. We're all connected through our smartphones. We receive the same news from the same sources at the same time. For the first time in history of humankind, we are a truly interconnected global community. If something newsworthy happens on the other side of the world, it's on my phone within 5 minutes. It's on all of your phones within 5 minutes. I can talk to you via my phone in a matter of seconds from anywhere in the world. We have never lived in a world that is that connected, that integrated, that codependent. The second part is this concept of perpetual disruption. So most of you have heard about technological disruption, where technology is changing at such a rate that we can't even keep up. But it's more than just technology, it's behavior, it's political shift, it's social shift. So we now live in a world of what's being called perpetual disruption. What we accept today will almost certainly be redundant tomorrow. So the world that we're living in is complex, both complex and disruptive, and we've never lived in a world like that before. This poses very real challenges for the modern day risk manager. I'm going to give you an example of how it works. So I'm a big fan of music, I play the guitar, I like live music, but the reality is that this concept of listening to music has only been around for 100 or so years. For more than 10,000 years, for as long as humans have been roaming this earth, the only way that you could listen to music was through a live mechanism of some sort, either a bard, a minstrel band, or an orchestra. You could not get music in your house if nobody played an instrument. You had to go listen to a live musical scenario. And somewhere along the line of the late 1800s, somebody invented the phonograph, and we saw the birth of the recorded music era. All of a sudden, the phonograph became popular. It was replaced by the gramophone, eventually the record player, and the hi-fi. So for 50 years, recorded music actually ruled, that everybody was buying recorded mechanisms, listening to radios and tapes of that. Then somewhere around late 70s and the 80s, somebody invented the first mobile music mechanism, the Sony Walkman. It was a global phenomenon at the time. It disrupted music sales in a way that nobody could understand back then. And everybody was walking around the Walkman. But that too was disrupted by the Discman, and then the digital player, and then the iPod. And today nobody buys iPods anymore. Why? Because you can put all your music on your smartphone, which sits in your pocket, and carry it around with you. So that was a 30-year period of disruption. But now that's being disrupted into Bluetooth technology and live streaming. My kids don't want to ever have to own a hi-fi. They want a smartphone or an iPad that is connected to a Bluetooth speaker. When I was a teenager, your entire social status revolved around the size of the hi-fi in your bedroom. You invited everybody around your house to see your hi-fi. My kids will more than likely never own a hi-fi because they don't want one. They want an iPad and they want a Bluetooth speaker. That's the world we now live in. So basically what you're seeing here is that what we accept as leading practice or business as usual today will almost certainly become outdated or obsolete tomorrow, and in quicker time. And that's perpetual disruption. So 10,000 years live music, then 50 years recorded music, then 30 years mobile and digital music, and the last 5 years it's all been about streaming and Bluetooth technology. That's the world we live in, right? So what we accept today will almost certainly be outdated tomorrow and in quicker time. And this poses very real challenges for the risk management community, because the risks that are going to come with new technologies and new disruption are things we cannot even possibly start to comprehend today, because we don't know what tomorrow is going to look like. All right. So let's talk about modern disruption a little bit. And here are some of the things that are disrupting our world right now. All right, technological disruption, you all know that one. Robotics, artificial intelligence, big data. All right. Some of the more aggressive estimates say that the jobs that we understand today, something like 50% of them will be redundant within 30 years. So we don't even know what the jobs of the future look like. That's scary, all right? Because we don't know who we should be training or how we should be training people now. Social technology, I love the picture of all the kids on their iPhones. That's become a phenomenon, it's a behavioral phenomenon. Any city in the world, you walk out, everybody's on their phones. They're walking on their phones. Show me where to go. Tell me what to do. You can talk to your phone can talk back to you. We now live with a computer in our hand, and it's become behavioral. It's the first thing we check in the morning when we wake up, pick up the phone to see what's happening. All right? Every person here will check their phone at least 2 or 3 times while I'm talking. Why? Are you expecting a call? No, it's behavioral. It's integrated into behavior. Go check my phone, go check their phone. This poses very real disruptive challenges for us because we are now in the earliest stages of cyborg behavior. For those of you who don't watch science fiction movies, cyborg is a half human, half robot. It's only a matter of time before the robot, which is an extension of our limb, goes into the back of our head. And with modern robotics, we're now actually seeing artificial limbs being taken by robots. Within 10 to 20 years, it is almost certain there will be people on this planet with robotic limbs and computer chips in the back of their heads. That is a scary thought, where humans' analytical and comprehensive skills can be actually driven by a computer chip, which is the way we're going, because our smartphones are already doing it for us. It's only a matter of time before it actually is an implant. That is going to be a world of disruption that we cannot possibly comprehend now. Moralistic issues, when wars start getting determined by robotic decisions, that's scary, but that's the way we're going. That is the world that we are ultimately going to live in one day. Deal with it, and it's more than likely going to happen in our lifetime. That's pretty scary when you think about it. Think of the associated risks that are involved in that. But it's more than just technology, it's also political disruption. Trump and Brexit are my favorite 2 topics around political disruption. In both cases, the general view is that these were protest votes. People didn't vote for Trump or Brexit for that matter because they believed it was the best possible outcome. People voted for it because it was a protest vote. They didn't want the status quo. So many people are arguing that the vote for Trump was less a vote for Trump's ability and more a vote against Hillary Clinton and the establishment. People didn't want yet another political era with conventional politics. People didn't want to continue in the EU because their lives weren't improving in the EU. So, screw it. Let's just vote ourselves out of the EU. And consequences be damned. And we're seeing more and more of this political disruption, protest vote, people challenging the status quo. When people actually start voting for things that are not in their best interest, but because it's just different, that's scary. That creates all sorts of new risks. And then the other one, social disruption. We're actually starting to see world behavior start to change. The hashtag #MeToo movement, I'm sure most of you here have seen it or heard of it. People got tired, abusers of the system, getting away with never ever going to jail or never ever being held accountable for their abuse. So they created a global phenomenon, the hashtag #MeToo movement, which just cut through all the judicial systems, don't have to provide witnesses, don't have to provide evidence, don't have to actually even provide any form of material substance. Just make an accusation on social media and let the media flow with it. And in the beginning, it was a good thing. All of a sudden, people who never would have been taken to task or lost their jobs were losing their jobs on a daily rate. Some of the most powerful people in the world were losing their positions because of the hashtag #MeToo movement. But then it overcorrected, and all of a sudden, people were being accused who shouldn't have been accused without any evidence or any material actual witnesses. So it overcorrected to some extent. But that's the complexity of it. The modern feminism movement is another social form of disruption. Now, feminism has been around for a while, but in the last decade, it's really taken off around actually changing cultural norms about the role of female in the workplace. Right? We're actually now starting to see governments give men the same paternity leave as women, so that it doesn't automatically become the woman's job to stay home with the baby when the baby needs it. A man can do it if the woman has a good job. So we've never had that before. We're now starting to see women take more roles in leading the household and being the primary breadwinner than in any generation before. It is now not uncommon for a house husband to stay home and look after the child while the woman becomes the primary breadwinner. That is massive social disruption. That would never have happened 100 years ago or 50 years ago, and possibly even as far as 30 years ago, but it's happening on a daily basis now. And this is the world we live in. Things that we accept as business as usual today will almost certainly be disrupted by tomorrow. So this, bring it back to risk, is very, very interesting for us as risk managers. Up on the board here are some brand names who, in our lifetimes, that means in the last 30 or so years, in our lifetime, all of these were global leaders in their particular industry. And then they got catastrophically disrupted. Some of them no longer exist. Some of them are struggling to come back. BlackBerry is interesting. They're getting into data analytics and smart intelligence. And they're actually, their stock price is rising again. But Kodak, where's that? Lehman Brothers, Blockbuster Video, well, who hires a video anymore? So some of these have gone. Some of them are finding their way back up. But the point is that if these global leaders can be disrupted, so can your organization. Right? Don't fall into the trap of thinking too big to fail, right? Because that's probably people who are most likely to fail. Right, so bring it back to sleepwalking into crisis. How can an organization tell whether their chosen risk management practices are indeed sleepwalking them into crisis? So I've got a couple of indicators, and this comes from research. I looked into what causes disruption, what are the most common causes of disruption and such. So these are, although admittedly some of them are opinion-based, like I like some more than others, the reality there is significant research and literature out there to support it. So the first indicator of sleepwalking into crisis is investing in the lowest level of maturity. So let's just say that there are 4 levels of maturity for risk management. Level 1 is compliance, where we comply just to the industry standards. Level 2, we improve our decision making. Level 3, we use it to become intelligently responsive. And level 4, grandmaster super ninja warrior, where we use it to become the industry leader or the best of the best. The unfortunate reality is most organizations are operating around level 1, possibly even level 2, in a working world that demands that we work at level 3. All right? You've heard it from the previous talk, my talk, and various others. The world has become complex and disruptive, and in quicker time than any. We cannot be operating at level 1 anymore. This is a massive problem in project risk management specifically. I don't know how many of you work with projects, but I do a lot of work in project risk management. Projects are very time, resource, and budget constrained, so they almost always invest in the lowest level of maturity when it comes to risk management, which probably helps explain why 70% of projects fail to meet their objectives. And that's a well-proven hurdle rate. Numerous studies out there. It's not my opinion, it's actually measured fact. All right? So we can no longer afford to operate at level 1 when all we are doing is meeting the base level minimum compliance requirements. We've got to be getting up to level 3 or possibly even level 4 if we can. If you're operating at level 1 in the modern working world, you are sleepwalking into disruption, all right, or sleepwalking into crisis. Indicator number 2, assuming all risks are foreseeable. The more complex and uncertain environments it becomes, the more unforeseeable phenomena, whether they're risks or opportunities or threats or anything else, the more that is unforeseeable. One of the problems that we have in risk management right now is almost all conventional risk management methods assume that risks are foreseeable. Think about your common risk management tools: risk registers, audit plan, bow tie analysis, quantitative risk assessment. All of these require you to identify the risk, then measure the risk. How do you identify and measure a risk that is simply unforeseeable? All right? And there are enough phenomena in the risk sciences that have acknowledged the existence of unforeseeable risks. Call them chaos, call them emergent phenomena, call them unknown unknowns, black swans, rogue waves, wicked risk. People have been writing about this for hundreds of years, okay? I've even found literature 150 years old talking about unforeseeable risk in economic models. The higher the uncertainty, the more unforeseeable risk we must expect. So why is it that all our risk management methods only deal with risks that are obvious, known, or foreseeable? If you are an organization whose risk methods only cater for foreseeable risk, you're sleepwalking towards crisis. You also need methods for dealing with unforeseeable risk. Now that may be business continuity plans, disaster recovery plans, but it's more than that. It's about building a state of intelligent responsiveness where we could look more proactively at the type of things we can't predict and get prepared that there are things we will not foresee, but when it happens, we're going to deal with it, all right? Indicator number 3, ignorance of emerging industry forces. This is one of my favorite ones. I love this picture of this dude sitting there reading his risk management plan, unconscious of the fact that they're on a train track and the train's coming down the track. And I think many organizations are like that. One of the challenges we have in risk management is for the longest time, risk management has always been inwardly focused. We look within our organization for the risks, the operations, the hazards, and then we build a whole risk management framework that builds around the risks that we know that are inside of our organization, and we put the blinkers on and we don't pay any attention to the risks outside of our organization. Again, it's a big problem in project risk management. too inwardly focused, not outwardly focused. Our world is changing constantly. New phenomena, new products, new behaviors are happening. We can no longer afford to not be paying attention to what's happening outside of our business, outside of the industry. What happens when Trump does this? How will it affect economics, the global trade, the supply routes, and then my business? If Brexit happens, what will happen to my widgets and goods and buyers that are dependent on the EU market? These are the things that we've got to start thinking about. External factors, emerging industry forces, which could create disruption within our world. And traditionally, organizations have been bad at this, but we've got to start getting better at it. Indicator number 4, rigorously defending historical beliefs despite the obvious limitation. So consider the guys pulling the first cart made of square wheels, and there's a guy on the side there that you'll say, try some round wheels, be more efficient. No thanks, too busy, we're good, can't go on like this. They say that this is the way we have always done it, is the most dangerous phrase in modern day risk management, all right? And unfortunately, a lot of organizations do this. We all know the world is changing. We all know it's more complex, more disruptive, more emergent than ever. But what have you done in the last 5 years that radically qualifies as an improved risk management framework, an improved approach to risk management? Unfortunately, too many organizations are comfortable doing what they've always done around risk management without any thought about what's the next generation look like? What's the next level of risk management that we next need to get to? If we've mastered this, what's the next bit that we have to get to? It's one of my greatest concerns is that we're very comfortable on accepting historical or traditional methods of risk management and increasingly uncomfortable in adopting new thinking, new solutions, which brings me to the final one. And this was touched on a little bit earlier in the previous discussion, promoting compliance over innovation. Everywhere we look these days, people are crying out for new innovative solutions to a complex, technologically disruptive world. Yet you try bringing innovation or new thinking to the risk management discipline within your organization and see how many barriers of resistance jump up. There was a slide in the previous presentation around one of the top 5 global risks for our world is resistance to change. I could not agree more. This desire that risk management is just about compliance, and let's just do the minimum basics and comply. Don't bring me any new thinking, don't bring me new innovation. We are not changing our risk management. That is possibly one of the biggest threats to modern day risk management. Complex disruptive phenomena cannot be mitigated through compliance. Compliance is about following the rules. Rules that were designed yesteryear. We need new rules of engagement, new rules of change, and therefore compliance cannot be the thing that drives risk. Innovation and entrepreneurship has to play a huge role in the future of risk management. So if you're working in an organization whose total approach to risk management is just complying to industry standard and don't bring me any additional thinking, you are sleepwalking to crisis. Because a complex, disruptive working world demands innovative solutions and entrepreneurial thinkers, not conventional thinkers and not compliant solutions. All right, so there's my rant for the day. Hopefully that adds some value to you. So the next question becomes, okay, fine, I accept that, but where do the risk solutions for a complex, disruptive, modern working world lie? And this is where you can build up your knowledge and some of the things that you as risk professionals can do to beef up your expertise and capability in a complex, disruptive world. So my particular passion, the complexity sciences. There's a lot of stuff coming out of natural complex systems, chaos theory, network theory, that provides new insights into how risks emerge out of a complex operating environment. So if you want to take your risk management understanding to the next level, start reading up on the basics of the complexity sciences. Our world is not getting any simpler. It's only getting more and more complex. Therefore, somewhere along the line, we are all going to be forced to start paying attention to the scientifically valid principles of the complexity sciences. So I very much encourage you to start reading up on the complexity science if you want to be an effective risk management in the new generation. And I think that's pretty much it. Look, from a personal point, I think we all intuitively know the world is changing. It's all got more complex, more disruptive. But what are we doing about it? That's the question. You're all appointed risk professionals. Your organizations, your clients are putting their trust in you. So what are you doing about it? This cannot be a situation where you come sit here, listen to a couple of people talk, and you go back to your business and then do what you've always done. Change the world. The only way the world is going to change is through the risk professionals like you who come to these conferences, learn something new, and then go apply it back in their businesses. So my challenge to you is, what are you going to do about it? You know the world has changed, you know it's more complex, you know it's more disruptive, but what are you going to do about it? Right. Right, so closing thought. It's one I've always liked. Most of you will know who Charles Darwin is, the origin of the species, and it was all about the evolution of our world. And his work alluded to a very simple phrase. He never said this specifically, but this is what his work alluded to. Throughout the history of our planet's evolution, it has not been the strongest nor the most established of the species that has survived, but rather the species that responds most intelligently to change. And this is what risk management in the future generation is going to be about, becoming intelligently responsive to change. And that's what your risk methods and your risk solutions need to start doing for organizations, helping that organization become intelligently responsive to change. If you like what you saw here today, folks, I run a website, complex-disruptive.com.au. Most of my academic thought papers and a couple of similar videos to this kind of presentation are there. By all means, go have a look at it, read it. If this stuff interests you and you want to advance your knowledge, most of the stuff that I put up there comes from academic theory and academic research, but I try to write it in a practical way that people can understand so they can go apply it. Please feel free to go to my website and have a look at some of the stuff that we've done there, and reach out if you felt the need. Thank you very much.